What's up, fans of fully removable lightsaber chassis? Today we're going to show off a build where I was contacted by Master Brad earlier in 2018, and he wanted to do a collaboration with myself and Space Windu. So this was kind of a cool deal, huge deal for me. I really am a big fan of Space Windu's work. And so it was pretty exciting to think that I was, going to get to collaborate with him. And, of course, Brad wanted to collaborate with my part of the job being Crystal Chamber. And then Space Windu was going to do one of his amazing installs of the Crystal Focus LS with like my favorite of the blade styles, old school 6-segmented string LED builds that only he and people like Makoto can do properly and right. And so this was cool. I was really excited about this collaboration as I wanted to come out with something pretty amazing for Master Brad. And so Anthony and I, Space Windu, started communicating about this build and going back and forth on how we were going to make this something special. And so it was getting closer and closer to the holidays, and so Master Brad, here you go. Happy holidays and Happy New Year, because here we are in January, and you didn't know this, but I decided to go ahead and build you a fully removable chassis with your crystal chamber that fits into your hilt, and this is your hilt right here. Space Windu and I decided it was best if he went ahead and shipped me not only the hilt, but the Crystal Focus LS as well, so that I could size this thing perfectly. And so that worked out really well. And thank you, Space, for doing that. That was huge. That helped out a lot. And so we got this thing pretty well locked down. So it was pretty difficult to kind of sort of communicate and ask questions, to Brad, like what he wanted sort of in this build and a chassis idea and stuff, without giving it the surprise away that Space Windu and I were going to surprise him and hook him up for Christmas. So I was kind of like, hey, I'm just curious, Brad, what kind of builds, old school builds or new school builds do you like on removable chassis and stuff? And so he sent me some photos of like the Gen 1 and Gen 2 Yoda from FX Savers chassis, and then Gabby wands as well. And so this is a Yoda Gen 1 that I have, that I've been kind of like making, keeping it going, and I put new batteries in it, and this is some of Yoda's earliest work, and it's pretty cool because I think this thing's over 10 years old now, and it's still going strong. I've really done nothing to repair it other than to just kind of like get new batteries for it, get new batteries for like, the bike valve crystal chamber in here. All of it still works, even though it's even 10 years old. So yeah, Yoda really knows what he's doing. You guys already know that. And so this is some of Yoda's very early work, one of his first chassis that he came out with. And so, all I've done is buy, protected batteries, and then I cover them with my metallic tape type of thing to decorate them out. And this has an old, I want to say a Crystal Focus 4.5. It's one of the very first ones, I believe. And it's still going strong. This thing is just unreal. And so, yeah, here we go. Yeah, I've kept it working all this time. And well done, Yoda. I mean, good stuff. It's just amazing that something that's over 10 years old, it's custom built. It's just so cool that this thing is still going. So I finally got it out of Brad that, this is the kind of the style that he liked. Some of the original old school chassis from the masters that kind of started in this whole industry and kicked it off. And so I wanted to, do something Jedi Arms dealer style, kind of like a remix of like a Master Yoda chassis from back in the day. And so I decided to go all out for the holidays and, put some serious design time into this. And I'm very happy with the way that it came out. So hopefully Brad is too. So here is Brad's hilt that Space Windu shipped to me, because we wanted everything to fit perfectly. And, this is a Roman Props Graflex Replica Gen 1. And so right away when it came in, I knew that I was probably going to have to track down the blade holder from KR Sabers that was specifically made for the Roman Props Gen 1, because I know that the sync pin holes don't align perfectly on just a regular, standard KR Sabers blade holder. So luckily, Cal still had a few of these left in stock, and I was able to grab one and import it. And, as you can see, the sync pin holes line up perfectly. So I was real happy that worked out. So, and then you guys are probably wondering why the sound card is sticking out of the end here. And this is my personal test Crystal Focus version 8. And I designed this chassis to accommodate a Crystal Focus LS. And so the Crystal Focus LS does not have the current regulator, this tall current regulator on it, because it's a 6-string LED setup. And so there's no way I could fit this card in the chassis that I designed for the Crystal Focus LS because of this, current regulator box. So I just wanted to test it, make sure everything was working, the speaker, the switches, and everything. So I dropped a Crystal Focus version 8 in the blade holder temporarily, just to make sure that all my wiring is good to go for Space to hook it up to his Crystal Focus LS. So when Space Windu sent this to me, he sent it with minimal hardware. The bunny ears have been removed. There were no buttons, no glass eye, no hardware on the clamp. So I just improvised and, put a replica button in there, a shaved brass eye, and then I had some stainless hardware that I could accommodate for this. And so you just for the video presentation. Let's see, what else? So yeah, just to show you that everything is working, let's go ahead and fire it up. I'm just gonna play just the Crystal Focus font only, because this is all about the Crystal Focus apparently. So there, this is Crystal Focus from the Crystal Focus line of fonts that come stock on the Crystal Focus cards. So one of the things that I did is set up the slide tab switch already for Space on the install. And when I take the chassis out of here, I'll show you guys what I did to set it up. This is my new favorite setup on the slide tab switch because it uses a physical push button and not like the rocker slide tab. I like how this one pushes back and it works best. This is the TGS accurate slide tab switch, and then it comes with like a way to secure it on the backside. So if the slide tab's already been removed from a Roman Props or even a vintage Graflex, if this has already been removed and cut out of there, this is a great way to set that up from TGS. It's very accurate. So yeah, that came out really nice. I'm happy with that. Let's see, other modifications. When the lower half came in, Space Windu and I talked about how these rivets, once you looked inside the bottom of it, straight from Roman Props, they had not been shaved on the insides to accommodate a full chassis all the way to the end. And we definitely needed that space, and you'll see why when I get the chassis out of here. So the inside of these rivets have been drilled out, shaved on the inside so it's smooth, and the chassis comes right up to the very end of the inside of this lower half. Another modification that I did was I redid the rivets on the Cobalt D-ring. And then what I do is when I had the bracket off to redo these rivets for through sound holes, I also put a neodymium magnet underneath of it. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can kind of see it in there. There it is. You can make it out. And so because this is a steel D-ring, this will actually stick to the D-ring, even when you hold it upside down. So it minimizes rattling when you're swinging it around and stuff like that. Otherwise it's just super noisy, but the magnet actually grabs it and holds it into place. And then, I opened up the sound holes on the bottom of this, and it's stupid loud now because you've got sound holes all the way around here, a huge sound hole underneath here, and then 2 right here. So it's wide open for sound. It's crazy loud. And then clashes on this one. We'll just do the one font. And swings. Whoop. Cool. Clash breaks. So yeah, Crystal Focus ain't stupid sensitive. All right, so there's that. I'm gonna show how to get the chassis out. It's, pretty standard. But one of the things I wanted to show Brad and Space Windu real quick, since this is their instructional video on this chassis and everything, was before Space Windu sent me the Crystal Focus LS, I was trying to figure out a way to accommodate the Crystal Focus in this chassis as I was cutting chassis discs for it and setting it all up for this one-off chassis. I actually made a miniature Crystal Focus out of acrylic and used the calipers to do the dimensions, height and width, and then glued a kind of a fake SD card holder on it with acrylic and stuff. And so this is an actual acrylic copy of a Crystal Focus LS. And so I'll include this, Anthony. Maybe you'll turn it into a keychain or something. But this is the only way I could think to do it before you sent the Crystal Focus LS. But now that I've got it in hand, and we're going to show how to install it and everything, slide it into the chassis. This is what I had to do until it got here. So this kind of worked out cool. All right, so let's go ahead and get it out of here. We're going to go ahead and remove the lower half. Twist and pull as usual. And crystal reveal time. Now, when Brad contacted me earlier in 2018, of course, he just wanted the crystal chamber. So everything he's seeing right now is, brand new stuff on the chassis from top to bottom. And so this would kind of be more or less in crystal reveal mode. I have not programmed the Crystal Focus 8 that I put in here temporarily. That's my test Crystal Focus 8. So it's just, basic flashing on the crystal chamber. And then when you fire it up, it goes into the stock sequence inside. And then when you go into lockup, it just goes solid on in the crystal chamber. So there's that. All right, and then I like to remove the clamp next and just pull it off gently. But one of the things that I noticed that I wanted to go over real quick is I noticed that Brad's clamp has been modified. I'm sorry, not the clamp, but the lower half has been modified for switch activation. And when his clamp showed up, it actually had the clamp activation 3D printed piece in here with the switches already in it that were glued in here. And so because, Brad, you don't need, because I made this a fully removable chassis, you don't need clamped activation anymore because you've got your main activation here and then your aux here on the slide tab. So I noticed that this was already cut out for clamped activation, the Romans. So you let me know. I've got a couple of extra bottoms that are just like this in this configuration. You let me know, and I'll actually trade you this one because I'm gonna do a cut up version of the Graflex, and I'll take this off your hands if you don't want it. But if it's sentimental, of course, hang on to it. But anyways, I just thought I would throw that out there and offer it to you if you want one that's complete, because you don't need this anymore. But one of the things that I discovered was kind of cool about it was because it is notched out, when you put it on and you close it, light still comes through and shines on the circuit card. So if you like that, then yeah, definitely stick with this one. If that doesn't matter to you, and let's say you don't want light to illuminate from the crystal chamber through to the circuit card, let me know, and we'll trade this out. I'll get you one without the notch. Anyway, so there's that. Let's go ahead and take the clamp off. Nice and slow. And so I also shaved your tabs on the inside, down to make it much smoother and easier to come off, and we don't scratch anything on the way out. And then you're going to want to remove your glass eye, like that. And then you won't have to loosen the red button, you just leave that as is. And then I put an Allen bolt in here for removal just to make it a lot easier. And so I'll go ahead and send this with it so it stays nice and secure in the mail when I ship it to Anthony. Okay, so let's go ahead and gently pull it out. Make sure the Crystal Focus 8 comes out with it. And here we go, full chassis reveal time. All right, there you go. Okay, so yeah, again, KR Sabers, Roman Props Gen 1 blade holder. I made custom acrylic inserts for these, and these are your two wires for the tactile switch. This is a brass hat really durable tactile switch in there. And so, of course, the chassis operates outside of the hilt, because that's the way I like to build them. And then on the slide tab switch, I used a physical button this time. It just worked better in this setup, and so you can do all your blaster effects and lock up right here from the switch. Yep, blade lock up. Now, one of the things I really liked about, and I didn't know it was going to do this, that I liked about the way that this chassis worked out, was I've figured out a way recently to make acrylic inserts in between, like the 3 rods, and they're recessed, and then these rods kind of hold everything in. So when you go into blade lockup mode, or even with the crystal chambers just flickering or flashing or pulsing, you actually get light coming up into the tinted acrylic, which is one of the other reasons I really like working with acrylic, is you get some really unique effects with the lighting. And so yeah, solid light. And so depending on how Anthony sets this up for you on the crystal chamber and the lighting effects, and I don't know if he's going to do some accent lighting under here, but it will light up underneath all of this on this side of the chassis. Another thing that I incorporated, I'm going to shut it down, is the card lays flat in here, and we'll go over that on how to install it later. But I wanted to figure out how to make the SD card eject into, there we go, into the crystal chamber. And so there is the notch down in here for the SD card access. And then I tried to come up with a really unique way to set up for the rice port. So there's your rice port. It is pre-wired, Anthony, with just 3 bare wires for you to go ahead and wire this up easily. And then all of the charging circuitry in here is wired up as well. And so what I did was I sent out a wiring diagram that I came up with to try to figure out a way to make the crystal focus, or a 7.4 volt system, recharge, in-hilt recharge, but also have removable batteries at the same time. So I came up with an electronics diagram, and I sent it out to Dmitry Shatak of Shatak Custom Works, and also Irv Plechter of Plechter Labs, and I got a response back from both of them. And so I took a little bit of what each of them said and kind of combined both of the advice that they gave me on whether or not it would be okay to leave the charger plugged in for a crystal focus and a 7.4 volt system. I had never set it up that way before. This is how I'm now setting up all my 3.7 volt systems on all the other cards that I work with, and I use like those miniature USB charge circuits to leave it. You can leave it plugged in all the time, and it acts as like a maintainer and actually keeps the batteries topped off if you have it plugged in while on display. Well, that's what I wanted to try to do with the 7.4 system and the crystal focus. So what I found out through all my testing is that if you use, say, just a straight 7.4 to 8.4 volt charger from TCSS, which is what Irv recommended only on this system, because anything that goes above 11 volts on the crystal focus could damage the crystal focus. And so so Irv is pretty much saying don't use a charger that is like a variable detection charger where it looks for how many cells are in the charge circuit and then automatically adjust the voltage, or any chargers that have the switch where you can select different voltages depending on how many batteries you have. You never want to use those kind of chargers. That's a huge no-no. So 7.4 volt charger only on this type of system. Because the way that this works is there's only, on the recharge port, only 2 of the 3 prongs gets used. And so when you plug the charger in, it does not necessarily disconnect power to the crystal focus like it normally would. There's actually a BMS circuit in here, and right there it is. That is the balance circuit for the 2 batteries to make sure they get a balanced charge. And then, of course, this is the protection circuit, but not technically a charger. So you have to use a dedicated lithium-ion charger, which is what Dimitri told me in this port to make this system work. So every time you want to charge the Saber and leave the batteries in, you'll have to pull the chassis out to get to the recharge port. There was just no option of getting it down in this area because the speaker and, you know, all this just takes up way too much room. There's no way to get a full 2.1 recharge port down in this section of the Saber. So Brad, when you want to charge it, all you do is plug in your, you know, remove the chassis all the way, plug in the 7.4 volt charger, and you can leave these batteries in, which is kind of nice because it's less wear and tear on your battery holder. It's less wear and tear on, like, you know, decorative batteries, which are basically what these are. And also it's recommended to use unprotected cells, because if they're protected, then you have a total of three protection circuits in here, and they'll kind of fight each other, and over time it's just not healthy for the batteries for them to be protected. So these are unprotected cells. These were my test cells that I used with your chassis, and I'm going to go ahead and send these to Anthony just so you have like a spare set of cells, but they're only 800 milliamp. They're not the full 1200 milliamp, which I'm sure, you know, probably Anthony will be using the full 1200 milliamp. And then I'm going to send Anthony some like brass and silver wrappings for his batteries if he wants to use them on there, and so then, you know, you'll have decorative options. So let's see, as far as the charge circuit goes, you can leave the Saber turned on and plugged in, but what I noticed with the most recent testing is that the charger that comes from TCSS, or just the straight 9-volt chargers, are not chargers and maintainers. And so what happens is with the power on or off, the charger charges these two batteries all the way up, and then the charger shuts off. And you'll notice on the charger, the light goes from red to green once the batteries are fully topped off. So if you turn the Saber on with it plugged in, and you're running the blade for a while, the problem is that the charger, because it doesn't auto sense when the voltage in the batteries drops, there's no way to maintain it until you unplug the charger and plug it back in, and then the light's going to change from green to red. It's kind of like you have to reset the charger. So what I'm doing right now is on eBay, Dimitri sent me a really cool charge circuit that's actually a USB charge circuit that is a step-up voltage to 7.4 volts. And it's a dedicated actual lithium-ion charger. So I'm hoping when it gets in, that when I plug it into a USB port, and then I bought a 2.1 to 2.1 cable so that I can plug it into this, I'm hoping it's also a maintainer. So then, Brad, you can leave, the Saber on display, slide the one end on, the top half on this way and the bottom half on down here. And then, this can all be crystal reveal through here. And then you can kind of plug it in and hide it in the back and run the cord around if it acts as a maintainer. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys updated on all that. I'm still experimenting with this kind of newer idea where you can leave the cells in, which I feel is a much nicer setup because you're not having to take these in and out all the time to put them in a separate charger. You can just leave them in for the life of the Saber. And then when these start to get old a few years from now, super easy to pop them out with the spring-loaded stuff and drop in some new ones. So there, I know that's some kind of complicated stuff on the charge circuit, but I'm really liking this setup and this idea. It's really nice. So when Brad contacted me, he said, hey, I definitely want to get a crystal chamber from you, Master Maltais. And so he sent me a drawing of exactly what he was looking for. And so I scoured the planet for, some of the nicer crystals, and actually found a double terminated blue aqua aura crystal from Australia and imported it. And so there it is. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's practically a flawless crystal. And then, of course, the white LEDs are pre-installed on each end for your install, Anthony. And then, but yeah, I did my best to recreate the vision that Brad had on paper when he sent me the drawing. And so real happy with the way that turned out. He wanted all the wires hidden. And so we used a combination of silver and brass, all the way around it. And so, yeah, probably my favorite crystal chamber I've done so far, just because I'm kind of like a symmetry freak, and I like things to be organized and neat looking. And so, yeah, this turned out pretty nice. I'm very happy with it. So here's your main power switch here, Brad. On and off. There's off. On. Boots up. And then Brad also asked for a custom speaker housing. And so this chrome speaker housing, it isn't chrome, it's actually a polished aluminum, and then he wanted like a rubber O-ring around it. And so then I love these speakers. These are pretty cool. I know that Cal had these in stock on KR Sabers for quite a while, and then I'm not seeing them anymore. And so luckily I was able to get a hold of some, before they disappeared or whatever. But pretty sweet bass speaker, and I was able to get a bass speaker in here after all. So that was just sort of a miracle, being able to free up enough space for a bass speaker. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers it on the chassis. I'm trying to see if I can think of anything else. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then what I'm going to do is desolder this Crystal Focus version 8, and then show off the wiring and everything that's ready to go for Space Windu's install, and then the reassembly process for this, and show you some of the cooler features that this has. Things like this, where if you slide these rods up into the crystal chamber, whoops, wrong direction, these two. So you got a silver rod here and a silver rod here, and so if you slide these up into the crystal chamber like this and like that, you can get in and see some of the circuitry in here. Now you're just going to see wires for now. Yep, you're just going to see wires for now, but the Crystal Focus will be right there, and I'll do this again when I slide the Crystal Focus in there. But it's going to give you kind of like an internal view of the electronics in here and stuff. So anyways, that was kind of fun. That worked out, little design thing I worked out. It reminds me of the old $6 Million Man figures, when you'd roll up the skin on his arm, and yeah, he had the little panel that came out. And so anyways, yeah, silly, but pretty cool. So he slides back down into place, and then that locks it back into place. Yep, just like that. And we'll show that off again when the Crystal Focus is up in there. But yeah, let me go ahead and pause the video, and then I'm going to desolder this, and I will be right back. Cool. Okay, guys, I just wanted to come in and do a quick edit to cover something that I did not cover in the previous video concerning the protection circuit, the BMS circuit. So this new setup with this chassis has the built-in BMS protection circuit. And so what happens is, whenever you remove either one of the batteries and put them back in, let's say, Brad, you want to charge it with an external charger on the batteries, or in a few years from now when you swap out the batteries, you're going to have to take the batteries out and replace them with new ones. But whenever you do that, this BMS circuit has a protection feature in it where once it senses the batteries are missing, or the voltage is missing, it will disconnect power between the batteries and the sound card, no matter if the switch is on or off. So when you take the batteries out and you put them back in, you're going to notice that it won't fire up at first. So let me go ahead and demo that so I can show you what that's all about. But before I do that, I wanted to show you the unprotected cells, that I've wrapped in my metallic looking tape. And then I'm going to send this to you, Space, because what I've done is decorated the end of the batteries with a liquid chrome marker. And the only reason I know about this is because Ethan Zimmer of Zimmer Labs, made a video about this, and this is pretty cool. You can make anything chrome looking with paint type of thing. And so it's just a cool way to decorate the ends of the batteries. So yeah, I'm going to include that, Space. And then, so let's go ahead and put the batteries in and show you how this works. So pop that one in and pop the second one in. Oops, there we go. Pop the second one in, and then you're going to notice, because the batteries have come out, even when you turn the switch on, it won't fire up yet. So what I've noticed is that to reset the BMS circuit, you have to plug in your 7.4 volt lithium charger. This is the one from TCSS. And so you can do it, I've discovered, with the switch on or off. It doesn't matter. So just for fun, let's turn the switch on, and then once you plug this in, you'll see it reset the BMS circuit right away. So here we go, plug it in, and look at that, you got power, and you can fire it up. So there's that. And then when you unplug it, of course, it'll just continue running the whole time. So there's that. So yeah, again, anytime you take the batteries out, you're just gonna have to reset it with the charger to get it to open up power between the batteries and the sound card again. All right. So So there's that. I think that pretty much covers it on that part of it. I'm going to go ahead and desolder the Crystal Focus version 8, my test Crystal Focus version 8, and then come back and demo the disassembly and reassembly of the chassis for space as part of the install. All right, guys, be right back. All right, Master Brad and Master Space, I am back now with the chassis tutorial on how to disassemble, get the Crystal Focus in there all the way, and then the reassembly process is just, in reverse. So Space, I'm gonna go ahead and include 3 different Allen tools. 2 of them have the rounded head on them like this because it makes it a lot easier to, as you already know, go into the side of these bolts like at an angle. And so I've got a smaller one for the speaker housing if you ever, if the speaker ever needs to be serviced way down the road or anything like that. There's the smaller one that I'll include for these, and then the larger one for the 3 Allen bolts that remove that separate the chassis from the blade holder. But I always like to start with this one because this one comes all the way out because you've got an open space here with the rice port. And so we just go and back this one all the way out. And right here, you'll notice that there's a spacer. This has been drilled through to cover up like the threaded part of the Allen bolts. And so when you unscrew it all the way, it's probably gonna just drop down inside of there and you just have to keep track of it. But so there, that one comes out all the way. And then like that. And then the other 2, because they have like the, the latching door type of setup on it, you'll notice there's a little tiny gap at the top of the bolt. And so what you'll have to do is just kind of go back and forth between the 2 until the blade holder separates. So see, like it unscrews and then kind of stops. And then, if you go back, then it's already getting loose. But you unscrew it till it stops and then rotate to the next one. And here's the 3rd one. And so then let me set this down just in case it's gonna separate. And then, keep track of these little guys that are drilled through to cover up the threads. And then, set it down. And then I'm gonna go ahead and looks like you just need to give one more twist on this one and then it'll separate. There. So, keep track of these guys, pull this one off. And then the Allen bolts actually stay in place right here because they're, they're trapped by this removable cover. This one isn't removable unless, you pull the wires out they're coming down through these tubes, and then you can slide these rods out if you ever needed to for any reason. So here's the other one. So these 2 bolts just kind of stay in there, and then the 3rd one comes out on the rice port. Okay, so I'll set the spacers off to the side. And so then the blade holder wiring is, of course, pretty self-explanatory. When you pull the wires out, you've got, of course, your 2 that go to the main power switch here on top, and then 2 that go to the auxiliary slide tab switch here. Now, one of the other things I wanted to show you on the, actually, let me get to that later because I gotta get the wires out of here. So let's set that off to the side, and I'm gonna start pulling the wiring out here. And I've gone ahead and labeled everything for you. And so we'll start with the positive wire on the Crystal Focus. Let me get everything out here real quick. And so yeah, we'll start with the positive wire that goes to the positive main power for the Crystal Focus. And so you're gonna notice, it's upside down. You're gonna notice it says Crystal Focus Plus. So easy peasy on that one. And then your gray wire is gonna be your negative. And so you'll notice on this one, it says Crystal Focus negative. And so this is your ground wire, the gray one. What's already soldered to the end of it, because when I had it set up on the Crystal Focus 8, are the 2 negatives for both of the crystal chamber LEDs on either side of the crystal chamber. So there's your negatives already soldered up to the negative for the Crystal Focus. And when you flip it over, it says crystal chamber minus. So here's, the 2 minuses. Let's see, next is going to be, next is gonna be speaker, SPK, twisted 2 wires. And then the next one's going to be rice. So you got three twisted for the rice, and then the only last 2 are these 2 guys here. Let me look around the camera, and it says Crystal Chamber Plus or Crystal Chamber Positives, and so one of these positives is for one side, and then the other positive is for the other side LED. So there and there. So there, that covers all of the wire labeling. And so let me pull out the Crystal Focus LS. And here it is. Yeah, I kind of can't believe I'm getting to see one of these again. These things are amazing. So yeah, this is the Crystal Focus LS, an incredible card. Actually, Irv, I wish you'd make some more of these and maybe hook Space Windu and I up one day. Hint, hint. I love these cards. I wish there were more of them out there with the 6-string LED setup. I mean, we're so spoiled now in a way with our NeoPixel blades with only 3 connections, whereas back in the day we used to have to hook up 6 wires or 6 segments on an LED blade. But one of the things that I love about this system is because it uses like 5mm LEDs all strung in a row, and there's a ton of them in there. There's no shadowing like there is on the new NeoPixel tech, where you get that shadowing down both sides of the blade. And I've found diffusion that gets it down super minimal where you can barely see it, but none of them have been perfect yet. To me, this system is still perfect in my opinion. So yeah, I love these cards. This thing's incredible. I can't say enough good things about it. So anyways, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and get the Crystal Focus LS in there. I'm gonna go ahead and eject the SD card, just because it goes in a little bit smoother, I think. And then when we look at the end and move the wires out of the way, hold them with my thumb out of the way, you'll notice that it is notched here and here on this steel support chassis disc. And so your SD card holder is gonna go towards the top. And then look around the camera here, make sure we're on camera. And then, so yeah, you just gently push it in there and it slides right in. And then you'll feel it kind of stop right at the end to this point right here. And what's happening is there's the yellow electronics box on the other side of the Crystal Focus LS, and it has to slide and drop down into one of the slots on this chassis disc here. And it's all the way in when it rests against this thin clear one here, and you'll actually see the card go completely flat to this disc here. So what I like to do is flip it the other way and let gravity drop it down, and then just sort of wiggle it into place like this. Then it'll go in one step, and then if you continue to wiggle it and move it around, it'll go in one more. So that's how you know, Space, that the Crystal Focus LS is completely seated all the way in against this thin clear chassis disc, and then it's all ready to go for SD card access right there in the bottom of the crystal chamber. You can actually see, yep, the SD card access right there. So you can pop the SD card in. Oh, and then one of the other things I wanted to explain real quick is with your wiring, and I'm sure you already know this, but with your wiring, you want to make all of your wires kind of solder this direction. So let's say this is the main power, and of course it's going to be way up in here. Make sure you solder everything on this direction so that when you slide the card in, it'll just kind of pull these wires in with the Crystal Focus in this direction. If you do anything this direction on the end of the card, it won't seat all the way up against this clear disc. But anyways, I'm sure you already know about that. But so anyways, let's see. The next thing we're gonna do is go over the blade holder. And I experimented with some acrylic chassis discs for you, and I wanted to try to make like a shine through blade setup for you. And so here's what I did. I came up with some different clear colored discs, and this is the Canon plug you sent me to sort of try to size things up and everything. And so this is your blade side, and I gave you a bunch of different combinations of thick and thin, and you can stack these however you want in any combination, and these can slip inside a thin-walled blade. And so then you use just like that clear, like watery acrylic cement that fuses these all together as one solid piece of acrylic. And then on your connector side, I did the same thing. But I used on the first one a frosted piece of acrylic, and then also gave you different thicknesses so that you can kind of decide what combination of these you want to use in here. But the reason that I used the frosted acrylic is because this first chassis disc right here is set up to have two 5mm LEDs. And if you want to use this option, I'll just open this up and show you how it works. But there is a hole at the top inside this disc and a hole just opposite in the bottom that will accommodate perfectly a 5mm LED. And you can use your same bin number colors of blue for the blades so they match. And what I was trying to do is come up with a way to where this would shine through past your connector. And so like when this goes, sorry, other direction, when this goes in here, and this is, you know, the blade end, when this slides in here like this, and then of course, once you glue all this together and you decide, you know, what length you want here, there is like this whole blade holder assembly or connector holder assembly. It has an Allen head set screw for this, so it'll hold it into place, whatever depth, you know, you need it or want it. So what I did was, when this is in here and the two LEDs are shining through this direction, you know, this way, the one on top, one on bottom will hit this diffused acrylic, and you know, it should light up evenly all the way around the ring around this connector. So this is something I experimented with. Hopefully it'll work out for you. I think that might be pretty cool. So yeah, there's that. So let me show you real quick where the one hole is, and then the other hole, when you have the crystal focus removed, you know, you can slip the LED in backwards on this bottom side here. But for the top one, it's real easy to get to, because this is like what I was showing before, where you slide these bars out of the way like this and like this up into the crystal chamber, and then you pop this open like this. You know, there's your crystal focus, and you can see, let me pull the bolt out real quick, get that out of the way. Yep. And you can see right there, there's like a 3/4 circle in the acrylic where you can pop an LED, you know, one of your blue blade matching LEDs in there, and then maybe hook it in line with your blade circuit if it doesn't mess up your voltage calculations, you know, resistors and all that. And there's another one on the opposite side. So yeah, hopefully it'll evenly light up that frosted ring in there, and you'll be good to go. So let's pop this back in like this, slide these back down in. And so another thing I wanted to show you is, I got out of Brad without ruining the surprise whether or not he likes chassis that cover up, you know, the green crystal focus card and stuff. And he was like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool to me. I actually like chassis that do that. And so I came up with 6 of these little guys, and they are just like acrylic, like little squares or rectangles and stuff. And they are perfectly sized. There's 6 of them total. And so 3 of the sides are clear, and then this side, I use that chrome paint on it. And so they press fit perfectly into these spots right here. So you see like where you can still see like the side of the crystal focus. So what you would do is, after you're done with the install completely, then you would you pop this into here, and it pressure fits right in between those 2 discs like that. And then you press it into this slot right up against the crystal focus, and then it hides the electronics. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, because you can see kind of the bottom side of the card there, and then 5, 6. I'll go ahead and leave these 2 pre-installed, because these won't get in the way of the card sliding in. But you don't want to put these in until after you're done with the install, because these can hang up the card going in smoothly if they're in the way. Okay, so there, that explains all that. And then, yeah, as far as the blade holder part of the chassis goes, I left all this kind of like wide open as far as what you want to do with blade retention, and I know that Brad wanted shine through. So I know that some installers are putting like a dummy slotted screw in here in some cases, where they cut the threading off and then they just glue like the end of the slotted screw in here. And that makes one less step of being able to pull the chassis out without taking this screw out. Or you can use it for blade retention, which, you know, it'll thread right through there if you choose to use this for blade retention. Also, I did not drill out this hole because I didn't know how big of a diameter you wanted on this for Brad's shine through. But I know that if you drill this all the way out and then you get the glass eye or the acrylic insert for the glass eye, that when you screw the glass eye in, it presses up against the blade inside here, and you can use, you know, the glass eye as blade retention as well. So I left those options open for you. So there's that. So Let's see, I guess the last thing I need to go over, last two things I need to go over. These are the 14500 unprotected batteries that I'm going to ship like this in the plastic box, so they're protected and separated. USPS likes it when you do this, especially when they go on a plane, to keep everything all nice and safe. So there those are. And then the last thing I need to mention is the charger. So Brad, this is the kind of charger you're gonna want to get, or Anthony maybe sending you one, I'm not sure. And so this right here is the charger from TCSS. I know you guys have seen these. And so you have to make sure this kind of charger only. 7.4 volt right there next to the model. 8.4 volt, 500 milliamp charge rate, because you cannot ever use a charger that goes above 11 volts as a definite rule. So 8.4 is like the strict reference rule on this. So there's that. That's the charger you're going to want to use. I think that pretty much covers it, guys. I can't think of anything else. That concludes the tutorial for Space as part of the install. Brad, thank you very much for the opportunity to work with Space Windu on this thing. What a fun collaboration. You guys are incredibly creative. It's been a blast working with you guys. And Brad, as a fellow United States veteran, I wanted to hook you up, man, with the cool chassis. And so, yeah, hopefully you're loving all this. And then, yeah, I mean, hey, we survived the Clone Wars, we survived the Empire, and now if we can just survive, the First Order, we're good to go. All right, man. So that's it. Thanks a lot, guys, again. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and may the Force be with everyone, and Happy New Year. Take care. Bye.